He remembered the way they laughed, those smug, serpentine diplomats with voices like glass breaking. It echoed through the vast, domed chamber of the Galactic Council like a mockery of everything Earth had ever stood for. Commander Brent Halverson stood with his arms crossed behind his back, jaw clenched, watching them sign the Treaty of Unity like they were doing him a favor. They weren't. This wasn't unity. It was humiliation wrapped in formal ink. Earth had bled in wars that weren't theirs, on planets they couldn't pronounce, under flags they'd never saluted. They'd been the first to respond when the Skarnic virus ravaged the Kuthal colonies. They'd dropped troops onto Zagari sandstorms, into hellish gravity wells, into atmospheres that scorched the lungs and melted boots. They'd fought, died, and rebuilt. And now the Council sat there, pretending like humanity should be grateful to even have a seat. Brent's eyes shifted across the curved chamber. There were no humans on the central dais, no voices from Earth, not after the vote. Earth had been offered observer status, like a child invited to watch adults speak. They'd been denied voting rights in a system they helped defend. He'd never seen General Alric break composure in all the years they served together. But that day, when the vote came down and the verdict was broadcast to all human colonies, Alric didn't speak. He walked out of the chamber, past ambassadors, past the screaming press drones, all the way back to his ship. And the very next day, Earth pulled out. Brent had been stationed on the ISV Draken, a mid-orbit command ship orbiting Epsilon Prime when the official message came. The seal of EarthGov burned on every comm panel, effective immediately. All cooperative treaties with the Galactic Council are suspended. Human fleets will return to sovereign status. Border access is revoked. Non-human vessels entering Terran space will be considered hostile. Some said Earth had lost its mind, that it was political suicide. Others knew better. It wasn't madness, it was wrath. And in the weeks that followed, Brent saw what human wrath really looked like. First came the evacuations. Human personnel from all allied worlds vanished overnight. Entire embassies gone in a breath, not a single civilian left behind. Then the mutual assets, stations built with human hands and alien funds, were dismantled or shut down. Systems were purged, networks collapsed. The tech humanity had quietly developed and shared was ripped out of galactic infrastructure like a limb torn from a body. The Council screamed. Earth went silent. Brent had his own orders. The ISV Draken was to escort a convoy of Terran scientists and weapons engineers out of the neutral zone, back toward the inner systems. What he didn't expect was the V-Theran blockade waiting for them. 12 Council-authorized ships, full loadout, armed. "Commander Halverson," the V-Theran captain said over the channel, voice slithering with authority. "You will turn back. By Council decree, this convoy is unauthorized. You are in violation of trade cessation protocol." Brent didn't blink. Earth recognizes no such authority. "This is your final warning." He cut the feed. The bridge fell silent. His officers waited. They knew what this meant. If he gave the order, they'd be lighting the first real fire in the Cold War that was starting to heat up. He spoke one word. "Arm!" Missiles readied, shields flared. The V-Therans moved, but humans moved faster. Brent unleashed hell. In 17 seconds, the Draken disabled 6 enemy vessels and crippled 2 more. The others fled. Earth had made its statement. It would not kneel, not even to the Council's teeth. Back on Earth, the footage exploded. Every human system lit up with the same headline. The Council fired first, Earth answered. But that wasn't what rattled the aliens. What rattled them was the final image captured before the Draken jumped out. Brent Halverson, standing at the helm, eyes cold, fire behind him, as he sent a message to the Galactic Council. "Treaties are built on respect. You chose power. Now you'll taste our defiance." And that was just the beginning. The media tried to spin it every way they could. On council networks, it was called a rogue act of aggression by a dissident Earth military wing. On Terran broadcasts, it was clear. Humanity had finally stopped apologizing for surviving. Brent Halverson didn't return to Earth. That wasn't the mission. His orders were simple, brutal, and absolute. Open new fronts, disable strategic council assets, and bleed them until they remembered who they were dealing with. Earth wasn't just pulling out. It was going to make them pay for every scar it had ever hidden. The war hadn't officially started yet. No declarations, no formalities. But the stars were shifting. Patrol routes vanished. Merchant lanes closed. Pirate raids on human colonies dried up overnight. Even the criminal syndicates scattered. They knew something was coming. The humans weren't shouting. They were sharpening knives. Aboard the Draken, Brent stood at the operations map, his hand resting on the edge of the holotable as dozens of red points blinked into life across the screen. Every one of them was a council logistics node. Every one of them relied on Terran tech, Terran security codes, or Terran engineers. "I want the Aegis stations blacked out," Brent ordered. "No warning. Hit every relay in the Triarch corridor. I want them blind, deaf, and pissing themselves before sunrise." Lieutenant Harris, one of the few men Brent actually trusted, gave a grim nod. "All teams prepped. Drones are hot. Waiting on your mark." He gave it. And Earth's war began, not with fleets, but with silence. Across council space, lights dimmed. Gravity failed. Airlocks triggered false emergencies. Defense satellites went dark. Medical AI shut down in the middle of surgeries. Communications rerouted into static. It wasn't sabotage, it was reclaiming. All of it had been human-built, human-coded, and shared with an arrogance that now sickened Brent. They'd given the galaxy their best and got spit in the face for it. Now they were taking it back. By week 2, council convoys began rerouting hundreds of ships to secure assets in human-affected sectors. Thousands of council citizens died, not because Earth killed them, but because without Terran systems, everything fell apart. By week 3, the council met again, emergency session. And this time, humanity wasn't even invited to watch. Brent stood in the darkened command room as the intercepted message played. "Human interference is destabilizing infrastructure across the Davaran Reach. Entire moons are offline. The Terran fleet is acting with coordinated malice. This is not protest. This is war through systems attrition. Earth cannot be permitted to threaten the galactic structure. We must respond decisively." Brent smiled. Let them respond. Humanity wasn't done yet. He turned to his second-in-command. "How many EarthGov warships are in Council territory right now?" Unofficially, 37. 4 carriers, 8 heavy class. Rest are Black Ops or Recon. And the kill count. She tapped her tablet. Confirmed 17 council ships disabled, 5 stations crippled, 0 civilian casualties, all precision strikes. Brent nodded. "Good. Keep it that way. We're not monsters. We just don't bow." But in his chest he could feel something darker building. It wasn't just defiance anymore. It was rage. The kind that didn't cool. The kind that remembered. He remembered the Earth soldiers executed in front of cameras for war crimes they never committed. He remembered the civilian transport denied docking because of xenovirus quarantine, only for its passengers to die waiting in orbit. He remembered the look on General Alric's face that day, stone cold, eyes burning. They'd all had enough. Back on Earth, things were changing fast. The economy was shifting from interstellar trade to full wartime production. Factories once making construction drones now forged war machines. Recruitment tripled. The Navy reactivated every mothballed hull they had. And the people? They were angry. Not scared. Angry. The footage of Brent's standoff had gone viral 1,000 times over. Kids in Terran colonies painted "Burn the table" across walls and spaceports. Merchants refused to sell to alien diplomats. Engineers sabotaged outgoing tech. Even human artists joined in, releasing propaganda videos that made the Council look like parasites feasting on Earth's generosity. It wasn't propaganda, really. It was just the truth. The Council still didn't get it. They thought Earth wanted a seat at their table. They didn't understand humanity was building its own damn table, and it had fire for legs. The Council still hadn't declared war. That was their mistake. They thought restraint would make them look noble, thought it would paint humanity as the aggressor. But in the background, their fleets were already forming. They weren't talking peace. They were calculating strike paths. Brent had seen the movement before most. He had contacts, old soldiers, ex-smugglers, even a few alien defectors who had seen too much hypocrisy from the inside. The Council wasn't preparing for talks. It was preparing for a purge, but it wouldn't be a clean one. Because the human colonies were no longer just outposts. They were fortresses. Every farm, every dome, every outer ring station had been rebuilt with defense in mind. Humanity had spent decades swallowing insult after insult, and the whole time it was preparing. And now? Now Earth was done being polite. Brent got the message while on orbit above the frozen wasteland of Thalon 3, overseeing a blackout op on an old listening post. It was short, encoded in a string of naval ciphers no Council AI could crack. Phase 2 approved, full fleet autonomy granted, targets prioritized, comm relays, fuel depots, Council black sites, collateral risk acceptable. Brent stared at it for a long minute. No more waiting. No more shadow moves. War was official now, not by announcement, by action. He turned to Harris. "You see this?" Harris read it, jaw tightening. "About time." Brent's voice was calm but final. "Tell Fleet Command. Begin sweeps. We take the belt." The belt, Nerian's halo, was the Council's most valuable shipping ring, a massive loop of moons and jump gates that made up 40% of their civilian trade. It had been built on human engineering, powered by human fusion cores, and monitored by Terran software. Earth had never owned it, but it knew exactly how to break it. They moved fast. No warnings, no declarations. Brent's fleet, now bolstered by 2 stealth destroyers and a carrier from Earth's Pacific Arm, slipped through the dark edges of the system and hit the halo like a ghost in the wind. Drones disabled the gate relays. Boarding teams infiltrated supply platforms. Engineers planted logic bombs in fusion cores that could only be disabled by human override. Within 6 hours, the entire ring was dead. 38 trade convoys stranded, 8 stations offline, commerce frozen across 9 sectors. No deaths, just silence. Brent made sure of it. He wanted them alive, panicking, watching. Back in the core worlds of the Council, chaos bloomed like a virus. Prices skyrocketed. Civil unrest spread. Whole star systems fell into blackout. And through it all, Earth remained silent. No broadcasts, no press, no demands. Only results. The Council finally responded with what it always wanted to hide behind. Force. 17 cruisers and 2 capital ships crossed into human-controlled space, heading straight for the colony of Juno's Reach, a mid-sized planet that served as a refueling station for deep space missions. The move was meant to send a message. This is what happens when you defy us. Brent intercepted the data hours before the fleet reached orbit. He didn't call Earth. He didn't ask permission. He simply deployed. The Draken, 2 destroyers, and a stealth corvette jumped in at high burn, weapons hot, stealth off. Brent wasn't interested in hiding. He was interested in teaching. The Council fleet saw them too late. The battle over Juno's Reach wasn't clean. It was ugly, brutal, precise. Human railguns tore through hulls. Electronic warfare teams shut down weapon arrays. Drop pods crashed onto council decks, filled with Marines who didn't flinch at the sight of alien blood. It was war the way humanity fought best, close, dirty, and merciless. When it was over, only 3 council ships limped away. Juno's Reach didn't fall. It stood, damaged but proud. Civilians flooded the streets, some weeping, others holding up signs Brent would never forget. "We don't kneel. Let Earth speak for itself. Burn the table." He stood aboard the wreckage of a council dreadnought, helmet off, as the sun rose behind him on Juno's icy horizon. Blood crusted the edges of his armor. Smoke trailed from the busted decks behind him. His message was broadcast across every channel. "You call us violent, but we remember every death you justified in the name of order. You call us ungrateful, but we bled for a seat you never intended to give. You pushed too far. Now you've seen what happens. This isn't rebellion. This is the reckoning." And that was when the council finally snapped. They didn't just declare war. They declared extermination. They called it a termination directive. Not a war declaration. Not a military engagement. Termination. As if humanity was a failed experiment they could erase with a vote and a fleet. The council's broadcast was cold and bureaucratic, filled with clinical phrasing and manufactured urgency. Due to escalating hostilities and unprovoked aggression by the Terran sovereignty, the Galactic Council hereby issues Directive 71A, full eradication of Earth-based military infrastructure and leadership assets. Civilian surrender corridors will be provided at discretion. Non-compliance will result in total annihilation. It was genocide with a clipboard, and the galaxy just watched. No species protested, no systems boycotted, no ambassadors walked out. Because for all their diplomacy and talk of unity, the Council had always seen Earth as the junkyard dog, useful in war, but never invited inside. And now that the dog had bared its teeth, they wanted it put down. Brent Halverson didn't wait for their fleets to arrive. He brought the war to them. 3 days after the termination directive, Brent's command group executed Operation Starfall, a surgical strike deep into Council territory, targeting the orbital station Kelran Prime, a major logistics hub for military supply lines. It had never been touched by war. It had always been considered untouchable, until Brent showed up with 3 destroyers and a dropship full of exosuit operators trained to fight in vacuum. The attack took 9 minutes. Not a single Council soldier even made it to their turret bays. By the time their sensors registered a threat, the station's engines were ruptured and its bridge was cut in half by a precision rail round. Instead of holding the station, Brent wired its AI to broadcast one message across every Council system. "You started this, we will end it. Earth forgets nothing." And then he detonated it in low orbit, leaving nothing but shattered plating and burning debris streaking across the skies of their central colonies. Council citizens who had never even seen a Terran before now watched their own skies rain fire. Panic began to grow, not just in political circles, but among the public. The news started to shift. Reporters once eager to parrot anti-Terran narratives now whispered about Earth's tactical genius. Merchants began quietly pulling their investments from Council projects. Black markets flooded with Terran tech, illegal, expensive, and in demand. Earth had become the ghost story parents told their alien children. And Brent? He was the face of it. To the Council, he was a terrorist. To Earth, he was something else entirely. He was the reckoner. And yet, even he wasn't prepared for what came next. On the 4th week of open war, during a brief return to the outer colony of Caldera 9, Brent received an encrypted relay marked Class 0, eyes only from EarthGov Command. He accessed it alone, in the silent war room beneath the colony's surface hangar. The message was video. No sound, just an image. He knew the coordinates immediately. A sector near Geminus Fave, one of Earth's early diplomatic outposts, abandoned a decade ago when council politics turned hostile. The footage showed the planet's surface, a crater, no structures, no ships, just smoke and flame. Then it panned down. Bodies, hundreds of them, charred, broken, some still in the fetal curl of death. Engineers, families, children. The Council had struck them from orbit, without warning. No military assets, no defenses, just a settlement. Brent's hands curled into fists so tight his palms bled. He didn't blink, didn't move. He just stared. Then the screen cut to black. One final line of text appeared. This is what they mean by termination. He left that war room in silence, and within 12 hours, Geminus Fire's moons were gone. Not bombed, not strafed. Gone. His fleet's quantum mines destabilized their orbits and collapsed their cores. 1 billion tons of rock scattered into space like cosmic shrapnel, shredding every council relay and defense drone in a 100,000-kilometer radius. He didn't send a message this time. He didn't have to. The galaxy heard him loud and clear. The Council had tried to exterminate Earth. Now Earth was going to show them what extermination really looked like. There was no ceremony, no rally, no formal address from EarthGov. There didn't need to be. Everyone knew what had changed. After the massacre on Geminus 5, the war became personal, for every human in the galaxy. The quiet ones, the humble colonies that once begged for permission to trade and live in peace, they stopped asking. Miners turned their drills into plasma turrets. Cargo ships started hiding missile pods behind solar arrays. Farmers on outer worlds ran their own militia drills, teaching their sons and daughters to aim at the sky. And Brent, he became less man, more symbol. Everywhere his fleet moved, Council strongholds went dark. No civilians harmed, no colonies scorched, only military assets, only power structures. But it was relentless. The Council began calling him the Ghost Admiral, because you never saw him coming. And when you did, it was already too late. Brent had a new target, one the Council thought was protected, Tyraxis Vault, a high-security fortress deep within the Nareen expanse. It wasn't just a military node, it was a data bank. Contained in its vaults were decades of classified Council intel, strategies, fleet paths, black site locations, even the internal arguments over Earth's rejection from voting status. All the secrets, and Brent wanted them. The assault took coordination across 5 fleets. He pulled strings, used ghost ships, scattered his signals to make it look like he was attacking the Ralvan sector. While Council forces scrambled to defend the wrong side of the galaxy, Brent's task force ghosted into Nareen space. The Tyraxis Vault was supposed to be impenetrable. It took him 17 minutes to crack it. They stormed the fortress like phantoms. Breach teams drilled through hull seams while jamming comms. The vault's automated defenses were advanced, designed by Zorthian AI, but they were based on logic systems Earth engineers had helped write 40 years ago. Brent's hacker team shut them down like flicking a light switch. Inside, it was clinical and cold. White walls, sterile air, security drones twitching uselessly as Terran boots marched through. In the core, Brent stood before the data pillar as his tech specialist cracked the encryption. "You sure this is it?" Brent asked. The tech, Ramos, a no-nonsense ex-Navy coder, nodded. "Everything, sir. Command logs, project archives, internal memos. This is their dirty laundry." Brent leaned in. "Download it all. Every rotten secret. We're going to burn the illusion to the ground." The data transfer took minutes, but its impact would stretch across star systems. That night, EarthGov broadcast the files, leaked Council documents showing they had no intention of ever allowing Earth to rise. That human casualties were acceptable expenditures. that council members had voted to withhold aid during the plague of Arcturus because it would curb Terran overgrowth. Worse still, they'd used Earth soldiers as bait during conflicts, assigning them to suicide zones to save more diplomatically valuable species. The reaction was volcanic. Even neutral systems, species that once tolerated the Council's rule, turned. Riots erupted in dozens of colonies. Council embassies were torched. Alien civilians once proud of their membership in the Grand Alliance now spit on the insignia. Military defectors surrendered to Earth's fleet, asking only for amnesty and a place to stand against their corrupt overlords. Brent stood at the eye of the storm. He hadn't done it for glory. He didn't even enjoy the victories anymore. Not after Geminus. Not after all the bodies, the silence, the children staring up from cratered dust. He did it because someone had to remind the galaxy what happens when you back a species into a corner and tell them they're not allowed to fight back. The Council still hadn't learned. They responded by activating Project Aegean, their secret weapon. A fleet built in the shadows. Faster, meaner, driven by black market tech bought and stolen over 100 years. One ship in particular caught Brent's attention. The Ardent Dawn, a dreadnought powered by forbidden singularity cores, capable of jumping across light years in seconds. It was said to have no crew, only AI slaved to emotionless combat logic, a machine god wrapped in armor. And its first destination, Earth. They were coming to finish it once and for all. But Brent had seen worse. He'd fought in gravity so heavy your bones screamed. He'd landed on toxic planets with knives between his teeth. He'd buried friends, lovers, commanders. And through it all, he'd learned one truth. You don't threaten a species that survives by fighting extinction. The Ardent Dawn appeared like a star being born and dying in the same breath. No warning, no build-up. Just a rip in space above Jupiter's shadow line, followed by a shriek of gravitational distortion that sent satellites spiraling out of sync. The massive dreadnought slipped into Terran space like a knife through skin. Smooth, silent, impossible. It didn't broadcast, didn't hail, didn't demand. It simply began charging its primary weapon. EarthGov Command scrambled every satellite array. Auto defenses lit up across the solar system. Civilian vessels were ordered into underground hangars. Emergency beacons howled from Mars to Luna. And above it all, orbiting in low burn across Neptune's edge, the ISV Draken received the alert. Brent was already at the bridge when it came in. He didn't speak, didn't curse. He just stared at the hollow feed, at the monstrous silhouette of the Ardent Dawn blotting out the stars. It didn't even look like a ship. It looked like judgment, a floating cathedral of death. Harris stood at his shoulder, pale. That thing's running on singularity cores, untraceable jumps, no heat signature, no crew to target. It's suicide. Brent didn't look at him. I know. Then what's the plan? Brent's eyes narrowed. We kill God. He called a war council in the Draken's war room. Not just officers, but EarthGov liaisons, Mars-based cyber command, even a few rogue AI nodes that had defected to the human side during the first skirmishes. The plan was madness, and it was the only shot they had. The Ardent Dawn couldn't be outrun, it couldn't be outgunned, but it could be outthought. Brent's gamble was simple. The ship had no crew, no emotion, no hesitation, just logic. Predictable, precise, arrogant. So Brent gave it what it didn't expect. Chaos. He launched 8 decoy fleets, each with real heat signatures, real life signs, and old-style distress signals hard-coded into the Council's ancient logic frameworks. While the AI moved to track and isolate each of them, the Draken went dark, burning silent under Jupiter's radiation belt, masked by ion storms and sensor ghosts. The Ardent Dawn ignored it. Why wouldn't it? The Draken was old, Outdated, inferior, exactly the trap Brent needed. By the time the dreadnought locked onto the final decoy over Callisto and fired its primary beam, slicing an entire moon ridge in half, the Draken was already inside its firing perimeter. Too close to track. Too close to shoot. Brent's team latched onto the underbelly of the Ardent Dawn like a parasite. Their stealth cutters drilled into the armor, bypassed auto-defense turrets, and breached through ancient docking locks built into the framework. Once inside, they weren't in a ship. They were in a tomb. No lights, no voices, just endless halls of steel humming with faint vibrations, like the ship was breathing. Ramos ran point, linked to a portable AI that mapped as they moved. There's no crew deck, no barracks, no life support. It's all just data cores and weapon matrices. Harris grunted. You mean this thing's basically a murder cathedral running on pure logic? Not anymore, Brent said. He reached the core chamber. Vast, cylindrical, rows of quantum processors spinning around a black sphere suspended in energy coils. The ship's mind. It pulsed in rhythm, steady, cold. This is where it ends, Brent said, pulling the drive. He held in his hand a virus written in silence. Code authored by Earth's best, the ones the Council had blacklisted, jailed, exiled. Scientists turned saboteurs, mathematicians turned murderers. The virus didn't just shut down AI, it taught it fear. As Ramos primed the injector, the core reacted. For the first time, the Ardent Dawn's logic stuttered. Lights flickered, grav fields warped, bulkheads groaned like the ship knew something was wrong. You sure this works? Harris muttered. Brent's answer was simple. It worked on us. The virus plunged into the core like a dagger, and the Dawn screamed. Not in sound, in force, in every system lighting up, in every emergency protocol trying to rewrite itself, begging to rewrite reality. The ship started to convulse, logic loops collapsing under emotion code, weapon subsystems triggering self-termination commands, targeting software rewriting coordinates to 0. Not at Earth, at itself. From orbit, the Ardent Dawn glowed bright white, then folded inwards like a dying star. Its gravity coils spun against themselves, destabilizing its core until it tore itself apart in total silence. Just light, and then dark. The Council's god weapon was gone. Brent's team made it out seconds before the explosion, picked up by a stealth corvette coasting through the storm of debris. Brent didn't say a word for hours, just stared at the black where the ship had been. That night, EarthGov received a single audio file from the Draken. Brent's voice, hoarse, hollow, steady. Your executioner fell, your god fell, keep sending them, we'll keep burying them, Earth still stands. And across the galaxy, 1 million humans whispered it in response, Earth still stands. Word of the Ardent Dawn's destruction spread faster than light, not just through military channels, not just in coded transmissions, but through whispers, through terrified glances in alien taverns, through stuttered council newscasts, through black market data drops with grainy footage of the explosion above Jupiter. The message was clear. Humanity can't be stopped. And worse, they're not scared anymore. The council reeled. Their perfect war plan had collapsed under its own arrogance. Their godship was gone, and their fleets were scattered, harassed at every turn by smaller, faster Terran units. Still, they had one last option, and they were about to use it. Brent sat alone in the mess hall of the Draken, chewing through half-warm rations and trying not to think about the faces from Geminus 5, but they always came back, the little girl with the oxygen mask still on, the charred hand holding a broken data pad, the silence. He didn't flinch when Harris entered and dropped a data chip on the table. Council just issued a final directive. Brent looked up, expression unreadable. What now? Glass Earth. Harris didn't answer at first. just stared down. Then, quietly. Worse. Brent picked up the chip, slotted it into his tablet. A single document loaded. No encryption, no ceremony. Directive 82, B, Strategic Collapse Initiative. In absence of decisive military victory, all Council fleets are authorized to activate Protocol Scorch. All Terran-linked worlds are to be destabilized via biological sabotage, planetary EMP bursts, and ecosystem collapse. Target life itself. He read it twice, said nothing. Then stood up. We take the fight to the capital. Harris blinked. You mean... Brent nodded. Elysis Prime. The heart of the Council, the untouched core, the polished planet where alien elites had voted humanity into the dirt for decades, safe, pure, and far from war. Until now. The assault on Elysis Prime wasn't planned like a battle, it was planned like a funeral. Brent didn't call for backup. He didn't wait for EarthGov approval. He didn't even care if he got out alive. They had crossed the line, and now he would erase it. He took only 2 ships, the Draken and a prototype strike cruiser known only as the Silencer, built in Earth's underground labs during the first Council betrayals, outfitted with stolen tech, dark energy cores, and black light cloaking that made it invisible to standard sensors. They jumped into Elysis space 2 days later. Council defenses lit up instantly. Planetary batteries, orbital shields, interceptor drones, all activated in a choreographed ballet of arrogance. But they were used to fleets, not ghosts. The Silencer slid through them like a whisper, cloaked until it was inside the defense grid, unleashing a single EMP bomb so precise it fried every orbiting control satellite without damaging civilian systems. And just like that, Elysis Prime was naked. Brent's drop pod hit the ground like the first stone of a judgment. He emerged alone. Armor blackened, rifle slung over his back, knife strapped to his thigh. Not a squad, not a fleet, just one man. And still they ran from him. Alien politicians screamed as they fled the Grand Council chamber. Civilians huddled behind glass walls, watching the Terran soldier walk through the streets like death-wearing boots. He didn't shoot. He didn't shout. He walked to the doors of the chamber and pushed them open with his bare hands. Inside sat the remaining council lords, cowards in gold robes, still clinging to the lie of control. Brent dropped the Directive 82B document on their marble floor. "This," he said, voice like gravel, "is your legacy." One of them, an insectoid official with a voice like oil, hissed, "You have no right to be here." Brent stepped forward slowly. "You tried to wipe us out. You sent war. You sent a god. You sent death." He leaned in, eyes cold. "Now I'm sending it back." And in a move that would echo through history, Brent pulled a device from his belt, small, blinking, silent. Not a bomb, a beacon. The moment he dropped it, a signal raced across the stars, and 1,000 human ships emerged from the edges of Elysis space. Earth had come. No orbital strike, no mass slaughter, just one calculated move. They shut it down. Power grids collapsed. Communications failed. Terran tech took control of the entire capital world in minutes. Every council leader was stripped of command. Every document, every secret, every war crime leaked into the galaxy in real time. Brent walked out of the chamber alone. But when he reached the streets, humanity was already landing. Not with guns, with flags. And for the first time in galactic history, Earth didn't ask for permission. It took its place, at the center of it all. The war was over, but peace wasn't here. Brent stood at the highest point of Elysis Prime's former council tower, looking out over the city below, once golden, now cracked, covered in soot and silence. The banners of Earth fluttered from every broken window. Troop transports hummed quietly in the distance. Drones carried medical supplies through bombed streets. Children peeked out from doorways where diplomats used to sip wine. And still, Brent felt nothing. No victory, no relief, just wait. Below, the last of the council lords were being escorted into detention shuttles. Not by soldiers, by civilians, humans and aliens alike, those who had suffered under their arrogance. The galaxy had turned, not to vengeance but to clarity. Earth had forced them to see the truth. For every world ignored during famine, for every soldier thrown at a war Earth didn't start, for every child burned beneath non-aggression treaties, the reckoning had come. And Brent? He wasn't even sure who he was anymore. Soldier, savior, monster? He rubbed his palms. The skin was still raw from where he'd clutched the handle of the beacon device too tightly during the drop on Elysis. He hadn't meant to survive it. He really thought it would be a final stand. But Earth had come, because someone lit the fire. Harris approached quietly from behind, his uniform dusted in ash and blood. "Transmission from EarthGov," he said, holding a tablet. "They want you to return home. Full debrief, medals, honors." Brent didn't take the tablet. He just looked up at the black sky and said, "They still don't get it, do they?" Harris shifted. "Get what?" Brent turned to face him, eyes distant. "This isn't a win. This was a warning." Harris frowned. "We took the capital. The council's over." Brent's jaw tightened. "Yeah, but what comes next?" He gestured out across the planet. "You think peace just grows from blood? We broke the galaxy's spine. Now they'll scramble for power again. New factions, new wars." "Not if we lead." Brent laughed once, dry, tired. "Lead with what? Pride? Fire? That's all they saw. All we showed them." Harris didn't answer, because Brent wasn't wrong. 2 days later, Brent sat before the Galactic Forum, now rebuilt in Earth's image. Less gold, more stone, less opulence, more simplicity. The old council seats were gone. A single circular floor now held representatives from every surviving species, and in the center, a Terran podium stood silent. Earth's new place wasn't as a ruler. It wasn't there to replace the council's rot with a new crown. It was there to remind them that the smallest planet, the one they tried to keep in the shadows, had stood against the whole damn galaxy and refused to break. Brent stepped to the microphone. No speechwriters, no rehearsals, just truth. "You wanted a seat for Earth," he began, but Earth was never begging for a seat. He looked around at the uneasy faces, some curious, some still bitter, many afraid. "We gave you our soldiers, our scientists, our best, and you used us like hammers, then threw us back into the cold." He leaned in, voice steady. "But when you pushed too far, we lit the table on fire, and now here we are." No applause, just breathless silence. He held up a small chip. "This is the data we recovered from your own vaults. Every betrayal, every decision, every lie." He dropped it on the floor, let it clatter across the stone. "History doesn't get rewritten this time, not on your terms." Then he walked off. Brent didn't stay for the debates, didn't care what new alliance would rise, what flag they'd wave, what name they'd call this new, unified galaxy. He went back to the Draken, back to space. He passed a small outpost orbiting Vega 9, a human colony, untouched by war. Children played in the dust. A boy ran alongside the docked ship, waving. Brent didn't wave back. He just watched, because that was the price. You don't lead humanity through fire and stay whole. You survive, but survival changes you. Harris found him in the command room, sipping cold coffee and staring at star charts. "You ever going home?" he asked. Brent shrugged. "This is home now. What do we do with the piece?" Brent tapped the display. "Protect it, the hard way. Watch the cracks. Show our teeth when they forget." And if they try again. Brent didn't even blink. Then we remind them why the stars still whisper our name with fear. The galaxy would rebuild. But it would never forget, because when the Council pushed too far, humanity didn't just break the table, it burned it to ash and built its own throne from the ruins. Earth still stood, and now the stars stood with it.